Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a really deeply unsettling case. It's sometimes called the blended family case, my child, your child, and our child. In this one, it's not just about the crime itself, grim as that is. It's really a story about, family dynamics, custody battles, and just how dark human emotions can get. Our aim here is to unpack what happened with George and Amber, look at these really shocking links between past relationships and this awful violence, and try to understand the impact on the kids, the innocent lives caught right in the middle.
Absolutely. And I think as we go through this, you'll see how these, seemingly private conflicts can just escalate. They can boil over into something truly tragic, changing so many lives forever. It really highlights the pressures involved.
Okay, so let's start with George Edwin Nye. He was born January 1st, 1990 in New York. People described him as, kind, gentle, very family-focused, really protective of the people he loved. He even did things like make handmade cards for birthdays and holidays, just thoughtful things. And he had this knack for connecting with people, always made time for his friends, his family. And then there's Amber Monique Washburn, born July 16, 1994, also in New York. She sounds lovely. Described as caring, attentive, a really good listener. Apparently a lot of people went to her for advice because she got it. She had insight, always up for joining in, especially spending time with her older sister. They were very close.
Yeah, it sounds like they were really kindred spirits, George and Amber. Both put family first. And that shared value, that was the foundation they were trying to build on. A hopeful one.
Right. So they met around 2013, started dating. Pretty soon after, Amber got pregnant with their son, George Jr. This was before they got married. Now, George Jr. was born with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and George and Amber, they were just incredibly dedicated to him. So much love and understanding, always supportive of his needs.
And ASD, just briefly, it's a neurological and developmental disorder. It affects, communication, social interaction, behavior. There's no cure, but early intervention. Things like developmental stimulation, behavioral therapy, and crucially, family understanding. These are key to helping kids engage, to sort of draw them out and lessen the impairments.
Okay, so here's where the blended family aspect and the conflict starts to come in. George already had two daughters, Gabby and Bentley, from an earlier relationship with a woman named Charleen. And George became a dad really young. Gabby was born in 2008, George was only 18, Charleen was 16, then Bentley came along in 2010.
And being parents that young, that comes with huge challenges, right? Financial, emotional. It seems those pressures contributed to George and Charleen splitting up around 2012. They were never actually married.
The custody arrangement at first was, it was complicated. The girls spent 3 days a week with George's family up in New York, and then 4 days with Charleen's family down in Texas. So lots of travel back and forth. Meanwhile, Charleen, after the split, she starts this new life in Texas. She gets married again to a second husband. They have another child together, a daughter named Skylar. And Charleen starts working for an animal control department. Okay, and this is where things take another turn. While working there, Charleen meets a police officer, Timothy Dean. Timothy Dean was 34 at the time. He was married, had 3 kids of his own. But despite both being married well, Timothy was going through a divorce, but still married. They started a relationship. Eventually, Charleen divorced her second husband to be with Timothy.
And that immediately brings up a serious point, doesn't it? When someone in public trust, like a police officer, gets involved in these really tangled personal situations, especially when it starts as an illicit relationship, it complicates everything, particularly with kids involved.
Definitely. So Charleen and Timothy get married in March 2018. They move to Sundown, Texas. And suddenly they have this huge blended family. Charleen's 3 kids, Timothy's 3 kids, all under one roof. Then, just 2 months later, May 2018, something really shocking happens. A video surfaces. It's disturbing. It shows Timothy Dean screaming at his own 3-year-old daughter, Mason, apparently because she wouldn't eat her breakfast. He raises his hand, hits her right across the face. You see her head snap back. She just screams. And here's the truly bizarre, awful part. Charleen filmed the whole 35 seconds. And then she posted it on Facebook. Reportedly, she even joked about it, saying something like, "This is what happens to children who don't eat breakfast."
Right.
No attempt to stop him, no condemnation. Just filmed it.
Wow. That action by Charleen it's profoundly disturbing. It shows such a stunning lack of judgment. And maybe, a really dangerous indifference to child abuse. It says so much about the environment those kids were in.
Yeah. Well, the fallout was immediate. Timothy's ex-wife, Mason's mother, saw that video and sued for full custody straight away. Timothy was charged with child abuse, lost his job on the police force, gone.
Yeah.
And then both Timothy and Charleen lost custody of all their children, every single one. Gabby and Bentley went to live with George permanently. Skylar went back to Charleen's second husband, and Timothy's kids went back to his ex-wife. So Charleen starts desperately trying to get Gabby and Bentley back from George. This kicks off a really nasty custody fight, but George wouldn't budge. He refused. He didn't want his daughters anywhere near Timothy after seeing that video. The court basically told Charleen, your only hope of getting them back is if you divorce Timothy. And she apparently claimed she would, for her kids.
And this is really where you see things escalate, isn't it? When personal anger, resentment, these legal battles, they just morph into something much, much more dangerous. The kids become pawns in this deadly game.
Exactly. So now let's go to October 2018. George is 28, Amber's 24. They just bought their first house together, literally a week before everything happened. George was actually planning to propose to Amber. He saw her as this amazing mom to George Jr., and a great stepmom. The family was happy, getting ready for Halloween, carving pumpkins, picking costumes, normal family stuff. And then, October 22nd, 2018, around 2 in the afternoon, George is home alone. He's outside fixing his pickup truck in the driveway. The girls, Gabby and Bentley, they're still at school. Amber is out with George Jr., a neighbor. Anthony hears George arguing, loudly, with this large man wearing a hood. That man was later identified as Timothy Dean. Anthony then sees it happen. Timothy Dean just pulls out a gun and shoots George once in the chest. George collapses right there near his truck. And at that exact moment, Amber is driving up to the house. George Jr., he's 4 years old, is in his car seat in the back, just eating chicken nuggets, completely unaware. Amber sees the shooting happen right in front of her. She immediately tries to turn the car, get away. But Timothy Dean turns, fires 2 shots at her car.
One hits her in the head, kills her instantly. The car just veers off, out of control, crashes into a neighbor's car across the lawn. But it wasn't even over then. George, he was still alive after being shot. He was trying to crawl, get under his truck for safety. Timothy Dean sees him moving, walks over to him, and fires 10 more shots into George's body. Just executes him. Then Timothy runs off through the backyard.
The calculation there is just chilling. The escalation. Timothy later admitted, didn't he, that he only planned to kill George, but Amber saw him, so he felt he had to kill her too. It shows this incredibly cold, ruthless decision-making, even in that moment of crisis. Pure self-preservation.
It's horrific. Neighbors called 911 immediately. Police arrive. It's a terrible scene. Timothy Dean is gone. They lock down the city, bring in canines, helicopters, but they don't find him initially. And the most heartbreaking part, they find George Jr. in the back of Amber's crashed car, physically unharmed, but I imagine just this image of total innocence caught in absolute horror. In the immediate aftermath, Amber's parents step in to care for George Jr., and Charleen drives all the way from Texas to pick up Gabby and Bentley, actually saying, George deserves justice. So the police investigation starts. Right away, because of the custody battle, they suspect Charleen and Timothy Dean. They start tracking phone signals. That's key. Charleen's phone pings show her in Texas on the day of the murders, so she has an alibi, technically. But Timothy Dean's phone, that tells a different story. 2 days before the murders, his phone is in Emporia, Texas. Emporia is like 400 miles from his home in Sundown. It's a good 6-hour drive, not exactly nearby. And while he's in Emporia, Timothy had this weird car accident. He calls the police himself, claims his rental car slid off the road because it was dark.
He tells the officers who respond that he's driving to New York. Why? To blow off steam. He says he's stressed about his marriage, losing his job, the custody stuff, but driving all the way to New York, where George and Amber live, where the murders happened just days later, it seems. Thin. The police do find a gun in his car during that stop. He has a permit for it, he says.
Right, and that's a huge red flag, isn't it? Connecting the dots. His story about blowing off steam just feels like a really weak cover. The destination, New York, combined with everything else going on. It's highly suspicious. It put him right there, didn't it?
Exactly. And then there's a detail from the tow truck driver who picked up Timothy's wrecked rental car. The driver saw Timothy move stuff into a bag before leaving the scene in an Uber. What stuff? A handgun, a rifle, a big pack of extra ammo, and a bulletproof vest.
An arsenal, basically. Not just blowing off steam gear.
Not at all. Then, the investigation finds out Timothy arranges for another rental car to keep going to New York. And guess whose name that second rental car is booked under?
Let me guess. Charleen?
Charleen's name.
Wow. So much for her planning to divorce him and having no contact.
Right. It completely contradicts that. And think back to her behavior right after the murders. She calls the police very early on, asking if her kids, Gabby and Bentley, are okay. This is before the victims' names are even officially released.
Right.
Her explanation, she saw it online faster than on TV news. It felt off, like she knew more than she should.
That detail, plus her booking that second car, it really points to ongoing communication, coordination between them. It suggests a deep level of deception, a collaboration that was hidden.
So yeah, the pieces are falling into place. Timothy's weird trip, the weapons cache, Charleen's suspicious calls and booking the car. And then crucial physical evidence from the crime scene. They found a mask, Lab tests confirmed Timothy Dean's DNA was on that mask. Investigators then bring in Timothy's friend, Bronk Boren. He's the police officer who rented the first car for Timothy. Bronk is evasive at first, gives conflicting stories, and then he fails a polygraph test. And finally, Bronk breaks. He tells them everything. He says Charleen was the mastermind. She specifically asked Timothy to kill George and Amber. Why? So she could get Gabby and Bentley back. That was the motive. And Timothy, apparently driven by his feelings for Charleen, agreed to do it. He asked Bronk to help him rent the cars in Bronk's name to try and cover his tracks. But that car accident in Emporia, that just blew the whole plan wide open.
It's just a chilling level of premeditation revealed there. And manipulation. It really lays bare how these intense custody battles, fueled by someone's desperate need for control, can twist into something so monstrous, taking lives just to win. It's a horrifying example of that dark potential.
So the arrests followed quickly. Timothy Dean and Charleen were arrested November 5th, 2018, both charged with first-degree murder. Timothy is the one who pulled the trigger. Charleen is the one who planned it. Bronk Boren was arrested 2 days later, November 7th, charged as an accomplice. And the outcomes. Timothy Dean was convicted in May 2019. 6 charges, including intentional murder. He got life in prison, no chance of parole. Charleen got 28 years for first-degree murder for masterminding it all. She'll be eligible for parole in 2042. And Bronk Boren, for helping Timothy with a car rental, he got 1 to 3 years for second-degree murder. He was actually released in November 2020. But the sentences, they don't undo the damage, do they? The lasting impact is immense, especially on the children. Gabby and Bentley, George's daughters, they're being raised by George's sisters now. And George Jr., George and Amber's son, he's being cared for by Amber's parents, his grandparents, the families. Their grief is just heartbreaking. Amber's mom talked about how she'll never see her daughter in a wedding dress. Amber's sister mourned all the things they won't get to do together anymore. George's family described him as this hard-working guy who really changed for the better when he became a father. They said he and Amber seemed like true soulmates. They regretted so much not seeing them get married.
That picture they paint. It's just so full of hope, isn't it? The kind of life they were building makes the tragedy even harder to comprehend.
It really does. They talked about how devoted George was, always checking on his mom, helping out family members. He'd even take his nieces and nephews over to Amber's parents' house, help them with yard work, fix things. He was like the family rock, the one they thought would look after his parents when they got older. Losing both him and Amber so suddenly, so brutally, it was just unbearable for everyone. A huge hole left in 2 families.
And that's the core of the tragedy, beyond the crime itself. It's the complete shattering of that loving family structure and the lifelong impact on these children, orphaned by an act that was just so selfish and horrific. It really shows the ripple effects, doesn't it? How dark intentions can echo through generations.
So that brings us to the end of this deep dive into the blended family case. It's a really harrowing story. A custody battle that just spiraled completely out of control into a double murder, changed so many lives forever, a really complex web of relationships, and just shocking choices made along the way.
Yeah, it really forces you to think about what family means and how powerful emotions, these unresolved conflicts, if they're left unchecked, they can lead to just unthinkable devastation. And it leaves us with a question, I think. What can we possibly learn from something this tragic about those hidden pressures within families? And maybe how can we create environments where disputes get resolved before they reach such a catastrophic point?
That's a heavy thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material today. We hope it gave you some insights, even though it's such a difficult story. If you found this discussion valuable, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. We'll be back soon with another deep dive.